All right, this one's going to be a little rough. Just going to really try to concentrate and move through this discussion as best as I can. This one's going to be very, very self-focused, which is not the best because you don't want to be in a situation where you're just yammering on about your own experience, right? The whole point of this was to talk about mental health from the perspective of those who struggle with it. Grief is a difficult subject, especially now. And the timing of this is extremely important. About 5 years ago, my dad passed away after a automobile accident. And he passed away right around his birthday. And so it's rough when his birthday comes around. It was this week. It was on Wednesday. And we make a point every year to go to his favorite restaurant and basically celebrate his life, right? And that man loved him some Longhorn Steakhouse. He didn't exactly have the most eclectic taste in restaurants, but yeah, it's something that he really, really, really enjoyed throughout his life. And so every year we go, and it's never been easy, right? And when it was very, very fresh in my mind, it was just straight up difficult. But the thing that's interesting about this too is I actually can pinpoint a lot of my more severe condition around some stuff that happened around this time. And a few years ago, I read The Noonday Demon by Andrew Solomon. And you've heard me talk about him a lot. He's definitely been formative in my ideas and opinions about mental health. And grief is one of the triggering mechanisms for very profound mental health issues. You can actually kind of go for a good portion of your life without having very many problems. And then losing a family member can absolutely set you off. And it can basically awaken it. So I'd gone to the mental hospital, I think a year or so, a few years. It's funny looking back on this whole time frame is extremely scrambled for me. It's not easy to even go back and remember specific things that happened at that point. But I'd already been to the mental hospital. But there was something else that occurred around this time. And I don't want you guys to think that this is just something I'm going to harp on over and over again. But this is just the reality, right? This is the reality of my experience, something that I've had to run into a couple of times. I talked about the active shooter stuff. There were actually 2 instances of the active shooter training stuff that occurred. And the interesting thing was that it was a week or so after my dad had passed that the second incident occurred. And basically what had happened was I'd been out for like a week, and I'd returned, and we had like this big training. And it was a really like a full day of stuff that was going on, right? And I went to a campus security seminar, and they were showing us all these videos of shootings and stuff. And I was like, I just don't think I can handle this right now. It's just about ready to get up and leave. I would have had plenty of, wouldn't have been a problem if I did. But then a guy bursts into the classroom wearing a mask with a gun in his hand. It's like, get on the floor. And I'm just like, everybody else in the room is like, oh, goodness, right? And the instructor was like, that's how fast it can happen. And me, haywire, right? Absolute haywire. I just completely lost it. Like to the point that I was just a stark raving, sniveling, ugly cry, snot all over my face mess. And I'll never forget how scared everyone was in the room after this had occurred. The gunman didn't scare them as much as my panic attack did. Now, again, I've already done the panic attack video, but I guess the point I want to make right now is grief is like a magnifying glass, right? It absolutely just makes everything more intense and sharper. So at this point, I was already kind of, experiencing a lot of, mental struggle. But man, that stimuli, just David was gone. Now, one other interesting thing too that I want to point out with this, because the last time I talked about this, I got really, really angry about it. This could have been handled a lot better, but at the same time, it's also important to realize that there was the actual response to my little freak out was pretty good. They were like, "Okay, go home. You're okay. Go home." Right? I can't believe I'm laughing. But yeah, this was pretty flippin' awful. But it's like I often tell my students something. I'm going to share it here too. When we experience really, really, really strong emotions, I might have actually shared this with you in the past, but I'm going to do it again because it bears repeating. When we experience very, very severe emotions, oftentimes we react with something that's completely opposite than what's expected. And this can be a very, very creepy thing when it happens. But it's something that you should kind of understand and expect. So, like, the other day, one of my students was watching something, and it was like it was a theme park ride, like disastrously falling apart and throwing people in every direction. Like 8 people died and a whole bunch more were injured. It was catastrophically awful. And she just couldn't stop laughing at it. Now, she was horrified. She was like, "I don't understand why I'm doing this. I don't understand why I'm laughing at this." And I told her, I was like, "Look, don't feel too bad, because what's likely happening right now is your brain simply doesn't know what to do with it, right?" And so, like, you react to it and you laugh because it's like, how am I supposed to react to this? Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to react with other emotions because I don't know any of these people. I'm not here in the moment, but I don't know how to process this. So I'm sitting here remembering this absolutely awful memory, and just, at this moment, I'm like, oh my God, that's funny as hell. So grief is that absolute magnifier. It just makes everything more intense. And it's like I went through 2 different phases of where my mental health is right now. And I need to talk about this soon. I don't think I'm going to do it for this video because I'm just not ready for it yet. I had a first mental breakdown. And that first mental breakdown could not be fixed with anything other than hospitalization. And I was hospitalized. I was stabilized. I got on some really good pills, right? Like, I'm talking good pills. And for a long time, it was like it was okay. I was trucking. I was on my way to a better David. But that 1-2 punch of Dad's death, and following it up with that incredibly traumatic kind of, knee to the gut, I still don't feel right. Even 5 years after the fact, I still struggle with it. Now, the good news is, and I think that this is something, for people who are going through the grieving process, man, those first few days, it's really hard to see the other side of that. It's hard to see yourself ever feeling okay again after that. And it's taken me, I think, about 5 years. Like this year, and I should really share some of the pictures of it, because we had a really nice, relaxed, fun family outing to Longhorn Steakhouse. I enjoyed my meal. I had an old fashioned. That man loved his whiskey, right? It took him a while to warm up to it, but he loved his whiskey. And the thing that was really good about this time was I was actually able to tell my sons about their granddad. I was actually able to talk about him without getting upset, which again, it's interesting because like, I guess everybody kind of goes through their process, and it is a process. And we all kind of walk a different path when we're grieving someone. And it's taken me a long time. And, it's one of my first instincts is to always kind of be very self-critical, but it's okay. And I'm saying this for myself, not just for, other people who are looking outside. But I think one of the benefits of doing these videos is it's kind of like a very reflexive therapy thing for me also as I do these videos. And I'm like, no, don't be hard on yourself for taking as long as you did to talk about him. Because it has taken a lot of time. But I was able to tell them stories, and I was able to talk about it, and I was able to laugh about some of the things that he used to do and the things that he used to say. And I was telling my wife, I want them to know what kind of man that he was. I want them to know that he would have, don't you know that he would have loved him. And, I'm sure in some capacity, he's watching them now, it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. It's still not okay, It's still not. I still really, really, really miss him. And he never met my youngest, who's named after him. He would have loved him. He would have he would have just fawned over this boy. He would have ate him up. And I hate that. I really, really hate that. But I can share with them, and I can tell them so that they do know who he was, And in a lot of ways, I feel like it's like kind of like a responsibility that I have, that I need to like pass this knowledge down so that they know who he was, what he was like, that he not only owned a boat that he fished with, but that he built that boat with his own two hands over years and years and years of hard work and effort. He brought that dream into being, that he was a very hard working man who basically kind of died because he never stopped. That man never, ever stopped. He gave everything, all that he had, until there was nothing left to give. It's and I think that's the main thing I want to say today. Grief is a process, and it's a process that's different for everyone. No one's going to experience it the exact same way. And we go through our steps, and we find ourselves eventually being comfortable enough to bridge certain gaps and to walk back over certain subjects. And I'm actually really surprised that it's taken me this long to realize how much it's important to me for them to know him. That it's like, I need to start confronting this, and I need to start like actually meeting his memory halfway. It hurts, but I need to go through a little bit of the pain so that they come to him. I'm their link to him, right? He never knew him. He never knew my youngest in life, but he can know him through me. And it's like, yeah, I have that responsibility, and I need to do that. And I got to take care of myself so I can do that. I have to keep myself healthy, and I've got to keep myself moving forward so I can serve as this bridge between this gap. And that's a lot of responsibility, but it's something that I want to do, and it's something I need to do. Yeah, it's been really hard. It's been really, really tough. This week has been hard. Just getting up and going to work and just doing the things that I need to do, and staring at the computer screen and just focusing on the piles of things that need to be done. And I can still sometimes hear the gunshots and stuff. And I sometimes hear things that he said to me. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today was, I don't think anybody has a particularly good relationship with their father most of the time. I think that it's, in a lot of ways, it's almost adversarial. But I want to talk about that today. I want to I want to talk about that. I'm glad that I've talked about the responsibility, you know, and I want to talk about the feeling that I want to move forward, and I want to get through the process of grief a little bit more so that I can be this link for them. And I think ultimately that's what you have to kind of do through the grieving process also, is to figure out what function do you want to have in your life in the wake of this person who is no longer there. That's helped me. That is helping me. For anybody out there who've been through this process, for anyone out there who feels as if a little something has been torn away from them, I would love to hear your story. And it's a story that doesn't end until the day that you end, because you never put it down. That wound rips open every once in a while. You go longer and longer without it, but occasionally, it brings you to your knees again. This week has not been easy. And one of the things I've been telling myself this week a lot, and I want everybody out there to hear this, is it is okay to not be okay. You don't always have to be non-mentally ill. It's okay to suffer the symptoms of the thing that is biting you. That's okay. We don't always have to be put together. So in any case, thank you very much for watching. I'll have something a little bit less 100% personal next time. I'm going to talk about toxic masculinity. If anybody's interested, I'm going to put a link to a collection of poetry that I wrote. And it's called Bury What Never Was. And it actually has some poems about Brad Bailey, my father, in it. And especially has some stuff about grief. The one that's really, really, really that I wrote when I was absolutely lost in the weeds was a poem called Denim Blue Dragonfly. And that's a really good kind of snapshot of where I was when it was at its worst. So if anybody would like to check that out, I'll put the link down below. And thank you guys very much. Thank you so much for watching, and everybody take care of yourselves.